So I'm the Awkward GM Corbin. This is Theo, and today we are going to be creating a character for Changeling the Lost based on Theo's character, Polonius Dewberry, which we had done previously for Chronicles of Darkness Mortals. Well, for the Mortals. There'll be a video or thing up here to go to if you want to check that out, but just know that we're going to be converting this character from a normal Chronicles of Darkness mortal character to a Changeling. Feel free to skip this if you're not interested in Curseborne, but I am starting a Start Playing account where I'm going to help teach people how to play Curseborne. If you're interested in it, there is a link down below that you can check it out at. I'll be running a game for Onyx Path Game Night, which is the last Friday of every month. And I'm going to try and keep that going for as long as I can. Additionally, I'll be running weekly games if you'd like to check them out. There'll be one-shots. Feel free to drop in, drop out as you want. Anyway, back to the video. So a quick overview of the template for Changeling the Lost. You get access to your seeming, which is the overall, I would say it's sort of like your species or race for Changeling. You're a beast, a darkling, an elemental, a fairest, an ogre, or a wizened. This sort of dictates what type of contract regalia you have, the sort of access to the type of spell-like abilities that changelings have. It sort of gives you a favored category that you have to take later on during character creation. Additionally, you get a favored attribute, such as for Beast, which is the one that Theo's choosing. His favored attribute is Resistance, which means he is going to get an extra dot of a resistance attribute, which I'm going to give to Salmon. Seemings also give you a blessing, which is sort of like a special ability that the seeming and also the kith give you. Now for Theo, he's going to have the kith of being a hunter heart, which is sort of a more like subcategory of your seeming. I believe it used to be in first edition that it was your kith was dictated by your seeming dictated what kiths you could take, but now it's a lot more open, which I enjoy. For his kith, he's taking Hunter Heart, which gives him a Pounce ability, which is going to be up, and I'm going to show you just so that you know what it is. In any case, going on from there, we have the Mean, which is what Theo looks like. Theo, or Polonius's changeling form, is going to look like. This is usually representative of their seeming and kith, also their court. For Theo, he is going to look like a little hedgehog, and a more tough hedgehog probably in this regard, since he is a boxer. He's going to be a frost hedgehog, covered in frosty crystalline spikes, because his court is the winter court, as chosen through popular poll. There are 4 main courts. There are others that have been represented in other parts of this book, and I think supplements, but we're going to just focus on the 4 main ones. Summer, winter, spring, and autumn. Theo has chosen winter based on public opinion, which is going to give him a free dot of the mantle merit for winter, which I'll put up here because why not? In any case, other than that, we have the needle and thread, which are going to replace his virtue and vice from being a human. The needle is sort of the changeling's true self, which she uses as a shield against becoming someone she is not. The thread is the motivation that keeps a changeling strong. This is the tie that binds her to reality. It helps her combine her innermost fears, desires, and needs to drive her forward and keep her grounded. These are things that will be used when we talk about the clarity attribute, or I guess it's the integrity replacement, which is clarity, as you'll need these two to help sort of like ground yourself and fix your clarity. As for Theo, he has chosen, for his needle, he has chosen the dynamo one. As well, for thread, he has chosen the friendship one. I'll post those up here as well. For touchstone, touchstones are how is usually a person, place, or thing that is someone you trust and helps you adjust to life. The touchstone Theo has chosen is fetch, which fetches are when a changeling is taken to Arcadia by a fetch is put in there is there to replace their mortal counterpart. So when Theo's character Polonius was a mortal, he was taken by a fae person into Arcadia, and so that no one missed him, the fae created a sort of doppelganger of him out of like detritus and like various magical items and things like that. And essentially, there is this person that looks like Polonius in the real world, but isn't Polonius and is faking being Polonius. So, as we start with the contracts, let me just give you a brief overview of how contracts look on paper. You are going to essentially have this spell-like ability. It's going to have a cost associated with it, a dice pool, an action type. Action types are usually either instant or reflexive, which means they either take an action or they are sort of like a free action, if you're familiar with games like that. They happen they happen with you reacting to something, essentially, as opposed to you doing it over the course of a turn. Dice pool usually is an attribute plus a skill, and then you have your effect. The effect for this one, Never Tread, is that you basically erase your footprint, and if people are trying to track you through supernatural means, it's going to provoke a clash of wills, which is just sort of another dice roll on top of your on top of a dice roll to track you. So it's just like giving more points of failure for the person trying to get to you. Now, because Theo is a beast seeming, he gets a bonus, which means this lets people traveling with him benefit from this contract up to double his stealth rating in companions. He still need only invoke the contract once. So if he has a stealth rating of 2, he can cover 4 companions with this ability. Additionally, there's something called a loophole. Loopholes are sort of usually small tasks that a changeling needs to do in order to reduce the cost of an ability down to 0. For the common regalia, it's usually something pretty easy. For the royal regalia, it's something that's a lot more difficult typically. For this one, a changeling leaves a note, a bloody fingerprint, or other clue of his passing. He can hide this, but he has to provide a clue to his identity if found. So this is the type of thing where you could screw yourself over by hiding an object that tells people where to find you. In any case, of the 4 common abilities, common contracts that Theo is taking, he's taking Never Tread, which is his common steed power, Touch of Winter, which is his Winter Court common power, which allows him to basically create an area of coldness or iciness around an area. Then you have Elemental Weapon, which he can summon a weapon of the element type that he prefers. You can basically like summon a sword of ice or something like that, or one of his crystalline spikes would be something like that. You have Hostile Takeover, which is another common one, but this one is not from the elemental weapon was from the sword regalia. Hostile Takeover is from the crown regalia, which is one that he doesn't have, but he gets to choose 2 of his common contracts can come from any regalia type, I do believe. And so he has chosen this one, Hostile Takeover, which allows him to take over a building or base if he enters it. This is the type of thing where it's like, oh, suddenly the security cameras aren't recording him because he's technically taken over the place and stuff like that. Doors unlock for him and things of that nature. Then there are his royal contracts, Talon and Wing, which I will get into in a second, which basically allows him to give himself wings or give himself claws. And then there's Field of Regret, which is a royal ability, a royal contract for the Winter Court, which allows him to summon ghosts to attack a target. Now, Talon and Wing, I'm going to note here, is one of these sort of power combinations of abilities that I really like to take, especially when I'm playing Changeling, because it has a little special thing in here. So Talon is a steed ability. Talon and Wing costs 1 to 3 glamour, depending on how many different attributes from it you're taking. But the main one I want to focus here is the your character gains the Claws of the Beast. Unarmed attacks gain a weapon modifier of +0 lethal. If his unarmed attacks are already dealing lethal damage, his claws become preternaturally sharp and deal aggravated damage instead. So this is the reason I always take this with the Beast Seeming, because the Beast Seeming also gets the ability to turn your unarmed attacks into lethal ones. And if I go over all the way back here to Beast Seeming, you have the blessing of you gain a +3 to your initiative, and you may choose to deal lethal damage with unarmed attacks. I'm going to also couple this with another ability to give me a +1, and you'll see that in the merits section. So let's talk about the combo here. We have Lethal Mean for 2 dots, which is going to give me the ability to turn my unarmed attacks into lethal attacks. However, if I already have that from, say, the Beast Seeming, I get +1 to my unarmed weapon modifier instead, which means now I'm doing +1 lethal, but +1 aggravated when I am using Talon and Wing, which is a pretty good combo, but some people do find that it's very difficult to sort of get through defenses of enemies, so just keep that in mind. You might have to find another way of dealing damage when you're dealing with people with high defense and things of that nature. Now, going on, I want to mention the 3 dot of the Winter Court Mantle. That gives me an ability that people suffer a penalty equal to my character's mantle dots to notice when I'm deliberately spying. Or I should say, Theo is deliberately spying. From there, we do have 1 dot left, and we use that for Hedge Sense. Hedge Sense is an ability that basically means that Theo is better at tracking things when he gets into the hedge, because there's an entire rule set of getting lost in the hedge. I'm not going to go deep into that, but that's essentially Theo's character. He is also going to get access to Weird, which is its power stat. It's part of the benefits that you have as a Changeling. You get access to Weird, which is your power stat, but it's somewhat related to fate and how the world works in the hedge in Arcadia. What Weird gives you is essentially a reduction to the effectiveness of illness and fatigue, depending on how much Weird you have. It also sets how much goblin fruit you can carry in the mundane world. Again, the maximum being set by like how much Weird you actually have. So the more Weird you have, the more fruit you can carry, which have varying degrees of benefits. You can remember your dreams better at higher Weird, which is good to some extent because you're going to have nightmares and things of that nature from Arcadia. And additionally, one of the major benefits is you gain 20 extra years of your life per dot of Weird. So you go up to 10, you're going to get about 200 years of extra life if you can avoid getting captured. Now, for your glamour, glamour is a resource that you can effectively get from feeding off the emotions of humans. I'll cover that in a bit, but basically you can use it to activate your contracts without using their loophole. You can make shifts with onerous Oniromancy, which is the dream spinning, and then you have hedge spinning, which is creating objects and changes in the hedge. You can create or open hedge gates, which are your ways of going from the mundane world to the fairy world, essentially. Hedge gates specifically go to the hedge and not Arcadia, because Arcadia is the place you escaped, and the hedge is sort of like the barrier world between Arcadia and the mundane world, Earth. You can use glamour to strengthen or remove your mask. Strengthening it means that changelings don't see your mask. By default, if you're a changeling, you see other changelings' masks, or you see other changelings' means. But if someone strengthens it, you get to see what humans normally see for them. You would do this, for instance, if you're trying to, like, if you're being seen by a security camera and you think changelings might see it, you could strengthen it so that people think that you're just a normal person or a normal human, things of that nature. You can use it to enact pledges. I'll go into more detail about pledges later on. You can activate your blessing from a kith or seeming. You can use it to see another changeling's mask. This is, again, one of those things where it's like, if you think someone's doing something by strengthening their mask and you don't know what their mask looks like, oh, spend a glamour and now you know what their mask looks like compared to their mien. You can use it to escape confinement. This is probably the biggest one. If someone arrests you and they're not using things that are made of iron, you can actually escape pretty easily. This is stuff like, oh yeah, you're in an old jail cell with iron bars, but the wall behind you is concrete, and they didn't put iron bars through it, so you could just like walk through the wall and things of that nature. You are so good at escaping, you can escape anything. Your hand sort of just goes through the handcuffs or things of that nature. And then you can use it to incite bedlam, which is basically putting an emotional condition on an area, making everyone angry. Your mask is also a benefit. It is the illusion that makes changelings look human in the mortal world. When you scour your mask, it grants exceptional successes regardless of the number of successes rolled on die rolls. So you're always exceeding exceptionally well on things, especially contracts. You can remove a door for social maneuvering if someone witnesses a contract that doesn't have a roll. So if you're doing something like never tread, people will just be impressed by you like disappearing. For your mien exists. It doesn't give you a mechanical benefit at all, except for when you have things like merits like lethal mien, which sort of link into your mien being used as like a lethal weapon. So if you have, say, spikes or claws, those would be part of your mien, even though they're a merit. You can do portaling, which is you can create hedge gates to the hedge. The main reason you would do this is if you need to make a quick getaway so that people don't track you, because you can create a hedge gate and close it. Or you can open one that is already existing, because hedge gates tend to stick around for a particular amount of time. I believe it's dependent on your weird dots, but I don't remember that for certain. Bedlam, I mentioned this before, you can instill emotions, and this can be done to anyone within sensory range of you. So if you're doing something to make people, like if they hear you and they hear you say something that's within like the hearing sensory, if it's something within line of sight, like that would also count. Now, the examples they give for the courts is wanton condition for the spring court, competitive condition for the summer court, frightened for autumn, and lethargic for winter. So that's like, you really just want to cause like a ruckus, maybe to get out. We have the Harvest Glamour ability. This is based on a variety of factors, but basically you try and invoke an emotion in someone else, and then you feed off of that emotion. We talked about how fear is something that autumn court people feed off of, so they might like get people scared by saying that they are they are repo men or something, and then that fear is built up in a mortal, so then they feed off of that. They just feed a little bit, and because it's links with their court, they get a little bit more. So I think normally you would get like 1 dot of glamour, 1 point of glamour for something that isn't resonated with your court, but if it is resonant with your court, you'll get an extra point of glamour from it. Reaping is the better version of harvesting. Reaping actually replenishes all your glamour, but the target loses willpower dots per the user's weird. It's not feeding on emotion. It is ripping it out of a person and devouring it, leaving nothing behind. So you're leaving basically like torn up people, people who maybe can no longer feel sadness or pain, but that leaves a mark, and it is something that the huntsman and the true fae can follow because it's like so identifiable. Then we talked about hedge spinning. So when you're in the hedge, you can manipulate reality within it because it is sort of based on the emotions and the mirrors the world in a way. I used to do stuff like, oh, you were in a abandoned shopping mall, and when you go into the hedge here, you find yourself not in what you think of as a like a forest or a hedge maze, but instead you're in a maze, a labyrinth, as it were, in a mall, and there is a skylight above, or the skylights are shattered out, so it's open to the air, but it definitely feels less like a hedge maze in a forest than it does, say, like actually being in a mall or being in an urban environment. Any case, so like if, for instance, I needed a weapon and I was in the hedge and I wanted to use hedge spinning, I might be like, okay, I'm going to cut down this tree and grab the hilt of a sword inside of it, and I can spend dots of I can roll a strength plus I don't know, close combat or whatever it is for melee weapons, and then um, if I have extra successes on a hit on a roll, I can spend them to essentially get myself a sword. Stuff like that. It can be pretty weird, and it's kind of like dream logic, which I will mention. Oniromancy is very similar, where you can enter a person's dream, and you can do sort of dream hedge spinning in dreams, where you create different effects by basically using people's dream logic. Because you're like, oh, we're in a firefight. Obviously, I would have a gun, and suddenly you have a gun and pulled it out of nowhere. That your own Oniromancy has two basic forms of it. One is using the Gate of Ivory, which is when a changeling goes to sleep and then uses their dream form to go into someone else's dreams. The stats for it are, I believe, the highest of your power, resistance, or finesse attributes. Sort of like a ghost, you only have power, finesse, and resistance. So keep that in mind. It's a lot more. It can be safer. You can have a little bit more power by doing it, but it's also a little bit more difficult in some ways. I'm not going to go into it. It's its own system, so it can be pretty drastic. But then you have the Gate of the Horn, where it's you physically enter a person's dream through a bastion in the Dreaming Roads, which you can find as a like connection to the hedge. So you go to the hedge, you go to the Dreaming Roads, which I imagine to be like Rainbow Road from Mario Kart, and then you go to the person's bastion to enter their dreams. Okay, so going back, we did have hedge spinning, and we covered that. Goblin fruit, I mentioned, it can give you a bunch of benefits. Healing, give you back glamour, make it so that someone's unable to tell the truth, so that they can't be interrogated. You can also get visions from them and things. Pretty good, pretty useful, but there are not a lot of examples in the book, so you might have to get some from other people or make your own. You have sealing. Sealing is when a person swears to do something, you spend a point of glamour, and that person gets a beat if they do what they swore to do, but if they fail it, they get punished by fate, essentially. These can be like minor annoyances and conditions and things of that nature. If you spend willpower on the sealing, it causes a bigger negative thing to happen, such as instead of doing like one bashing, it does 3 bashing, or it has an even more detrimental effect. It can be a bit interesting, but it is not something that is going to break the game, in my opinion. Um, we have oaths. Oaths are deals amongst the changelings and the fae. This is stuff like membership with a freehold or a motley. If you break them, if you make a deal with other changelings, you get like a positive benefit, like, oh, I can now trade my glamour freely amongst people in this group, regardless of how far or how near we are. And then if you break that, it is a very detrimental thing. It can have stuff like drastic effects depending on what severity the oath was for. Oath breakers are, I believe, not taken kindly in changeling society, so don't break oaths as much as you can. Bargains are deals with mortals that help keep changelings safe. This gives you a condition called the obligation condition, which means that huntsmen must perform a clash of wills if they use their hunter senses to try and track a changeling. This is essentially an extra die roll that means that if they fail that die roll, they can't even roll the tracking check, and even then, if they do succeed on it, they might still fail the tracking check. They also can't use the changeling's weird to add to their tracking rolls, which is kind of a detriment normally, but with an obligation, it's fine. This is stuff like you promise to a mortal that you'll fix their shoes in the morning, so that they are having, or like go to a cobbler and say, I will make you 100 pairs of shoes, and you use your contracts to make 100 pairs of shoes in the night. And while you're doing that bargain, while you're completing the deal for the mortal, you can't be tracked at all, which is awesome. And then you get all these other benefits during the normal course of a game. So it's pretty good. Lastly, for the pros, we have icons. Icons are remnants of a changeling that were left behind when they escaped Arcadia through the thorns in the hedge. When you get one, it increases the changeling's clarity by 1 and replenishes all of their willpower. It also contains a memory of your time in Arcadia. Now, that is something that my players have definitely got at least 1 or 2 icons for their characters. There is no limit to how many icons there can be, but they're a very potent thing and very helpful for getting story beats across, because changelings do have a lot of trauma that they had to deal with in Arcadia, so there's a lot of stuff that has come about that they have forgotten and sort of repressed because the icon, the physical representation of that memory, doesn't exist to them anymore. As far as cons go, I feel like I'm missing a bunch of cons. I apologize if I am, but their cons I did find were pretty dramatic for this. Specifically for weird, for each dot of weird, there is a +1 to any attempts for the Fae to track a changeling. So the more powerful you are, the bigger your beacon is in the real world that the Fae can track you. This can be mitigated with obligations, which is fine. Then you have you gain a frailty of a differing severity every 2 dots of weird that you get. These are things like minor frailties, like, oh, you're going to have to sing the songs of a song when you hear the lyrics said in common conversation. That's something my sister took because that's something she actually does in real life. So it made sense that it would be something that a changeling might do, where if someone says stop, and then she might go hammer tap, and then continue the song from that lyric and things like that. But any case, some of the major ones can be things like, oh, you are weak to fire because you're actually made of wood, and now you've gained this frailty because as you grew in power, you're more wood-like, or things like that. A big frailty. So frailties are kind of like are either bans or banes for ghosts. So they're either something that you do, like a ban, which is like you're forced to do it whenever it comes up, or a bane, which is something that damages you when you touch it. For frailties for all changelings, cold iron is a major frailty. This is iron that has not been forged by magic or forged by machinery. It has to be handmade iron in the rules. So there's a lot of caveats to that. Um, but I will say, like, basically what will happen is if you get hit with cold iron, if you touch cold iron, it is going to do aggravated damage to you, which is like burning, singeing pain. It's like silver for werewolves in that regard. However, iron has another quality to it that I don't believe silver has for werewolves, which is it bypasses magical abilities. So even everyday iron can bypass magic. So if you have a mantle that says you get armor, for instance, and someone shoots you with a nail gun with iron nails, uh, that's going to pierce your magic and you're not going to get that armor. Uh, my players had a tough time in a Changeling Hunter group because the Changeling Hunter group had uh, nail guns, and then the other guys had shotgun shells with pieces of cold iron, like sort of like cracked in the thing, shaved off or what have you. Now, does that count as cold iron? Can be for debate. Some people say cold iron needs to be extremely rare. Other people will say, well, like an iron pan can be cold iron, but if someone finds iron in a mine somewhere and it's like chipped off the wall, that's technically cold iron. There's glamour deprivation, which is when you are reduced to 0 glamour. You get the deprived condition. Let me just bring that up so I don't forget it. I might cut a little bit out of here. So deprived is essentially you suffer from addiction because your character is without it. She's unable to focus or contain herself. So remove 1 die from your resistance die pools. So this is your, like, you need to indulge the condition by feeding on glamour, getting glamour in some way. Other than that, you do have clarity as a mechanical detriment. It's essentially your integrity stat for these characters. You can have a variety of breaking points, such as killing people or experiencing something that doesn't seem real, and you're getting gaslit that says that didn't happen. I actually really like how clarity works in this game, but it is damage. There is minor clarity damage and severe clarity damage. When you fill up on minor clarity damage, you go into a coma. When you fill up of severe clarity damage, you can die. Clarity, once it hits the one of the 3 rightmost clarity boxes, you will gain a clarity condition. So if you hit the third to last one and the second to last one in the same thing, you're going to get 1 condition for each of those boxes. For those 2 boxes. This can be stuff like a variety of things like broken and even coma, which doesn't make sense to me because coma is when you get full minor damage, but in any case, that's what it says in the book. I have never had a player get full clarity filled out. Maybe because I've just been a good GM or a terrible GM in that regard for tracking, but it is something that I've not really run into too much. And I ran Changeling for like a year or 2. Additionally, one of the major detriments I would say a Changeling gets is the fetch. The fetch is an antagonist built into the character at conception. So once your character goes from being a human to a changeling, there is a creature known as a fetch that has taken over their life. And fetches are usually don't know that they're fetches, or if they do, they're probably very evil, and they will actively fight your changeling because they know that your changeling is probably going to kill them. I have had multiple situations where my players had to deal with changelings who are doing, or sorry, fetches who react to being a fetch in different ways. For instance, one of my players, their fetch knew he was a fetch pretty early on. And so what he decided to do was become a mad scientist and create monstrosities using his Fey-like magic. Another one, he became a cult leader, and then when he found out he was a fetch, was like, oh, this explains everything. This explains why I think technology is evil. It's because I never learned about technology. It was instilled into me as a uh, as sort of like just memories or knowledge to me by magical means. So I'm actually wrong. I'm a fetch, and this makes sense. Want to grab a beer, and and then for my other two players, their characters were very old because time works different in Arcadia. So for them, it felt like it was only a couple of years in Arcadia, but in actuality, it was like 100 years. But I had their fetches die, and of natural causes. And when they looked into their their fetches, what ended up happening was they began getting haunted by hedge ghosts of their fetches. Because I said when a fetch dies, it becomes a hedge ghost. And okay, those are all the pros and cons I can think of for being a changeling. Let me know if I missed anything, because I feel like I did. So that's it for Changeling Lost. We are going to be covering another game line some point in the future. Please let me know if you want to hear about Hunter the Vigil, Dice the Sin Eaters, Mummy the Curse, Beast the Primordial, Deviant the Renegade, or even Demon the Descent. Now, for me, I'd really like to check out and do Mummy or Demon next, because those are the ones that I really enjoy. But please let me know what you think in the comments down below, and please like and subscribe or something like that. Anyway, have a good weekend or day or whatever you're doing right now, because, man, we all need some goodness, some luck in our daily days. Hi, Theo.